What's up, everybody? This is Rukia Hadassah, and I am calling for a quiet riot. I'm going to explain what that is or what I mean by that in just a moment, but before I do, I just want to give my condolences to the family and friends of George Floyd and all the others who have been lost to senseless, careless police violence. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, uh, you know the list goes on and on. So I just don't even have enough breath in me to call all of those names right now. But what I do want to do is just offer my sincerest condolences. George Floyd, he's not someone I knew, but interestingly enough, George Floyd is from Houston, Texas, as I am. He is also from Third Ward. I'm not from Third Ward, but I was born in Third Ward and raised in a nearby neighborhood called South Park, which a lot of people may have heard of. It. Third Ward is a nationally known neighborhood. It is rough. It's an inner city neighborhood, but it is also a very beautiful neighborhood, and it's a very historic neighborhood. So when you talk about the people who have lived there and been a part of Houston's community from that area, you truly have to actually have been there or come from there. Third Ward is a neighborhood I used to take my dad to go get his hair cut. And, his barber cut his hair there for 40, 50 years. So it's a very close knit, tight knit community. And I'm speaking from firsthand knowledge of the place that he comes from, not so much that I know him. I do also know that he was, I know of the school, Jack Yates, that he went to. That school had a reputation for being a pretty rough school because of the neighborhood that it's in. But it is also a very good school where a lot of great people have come from. So I don't want to slap any labels on this school, but just growing up, it just Jack Yates had a reputation because it was in a rough neighborhood. It was one of the roughest schools in the city, and so oh, I know tons of people that just went to that school. So I couldn't even begin to give you the list of the people I know personally and all of the famous people that have gone to that school. So I hope that the community will continue to rise from what they're going through and pull together and stand united against these atrocities that continue to happen in our community. So, George Floyd also played football. I understand he was a tight end, and he made an impact for his school athletically. And that's really what I want to talk about in terms of this quiet riot. Ahmaud Arbery, I understand, also was a football player in high school. I'm not sure if he played in college or not, but I'm the mother of a former football player myself who attended the University of Alabama for 4 years. His name is Joshua Frazier, and he did quite well while he was there. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2018 draft in the seventh round. He did not make the 93-man roster, and he went on to do some other things with the Detroit Lions, and then also with a team in the AAF called the Birmingham Iron, now defunct. So I know a little bit about the impact that our sons can have on sports at the high school level, at the college level, and certainly at the professional level. And given that, it's time to understand our leverage in this area so that we can begin to affect change. Earlier today, I was playing a game of chess with my 8-year-old granddaughter and sort of had this epiphany as we were, moving our pieces around on the board. And I began to sort of see her moving this one piece just back and forth over a few squares, which continued to make her more and more vulnerable. And that when I saw that she wasn't utilizing the board, I capitalized on that. I don't give I don't let my grandkids win in games with me because it's to teach them about life. So I play them as hard as, I would play anybody. And so when I saw that she wasn't utilizing her spaces, I capitalized on it and I ended up winning the game. And that's something that I think that we as a people are not doing together. Some of us as individuals may find ways to, get around the system or what have you, but for some reason as a people, and I'm talking about black people, my people, we are continuously doing the same thing. We're making the same moves over and over. And our adversary is continuously creating fewer and fewer options for us. And so that's why we end up feeling like we've got to riot. We've got to go loot targets and destroy police squad cars and all of this. And I get that anger. I do. I get it. But when you're reacting and responding like that, you're doing exactly what your adversary expects you to do. They know exactly what type of response they want from you. They know exactly what they need to do to get that response from you. And so when you continue to feed into what they expect you to do, that's when they take away your power. Because they still have all the jails, and they still have all the keys to those jails. And they still have all the courtrooms. So if you go out there and you do something that gives them the least excuse to arrest you, that creates problems for you and your family that we really don't need right now. We don't need that. And so I'm thinking, like, what's the next step here? What do we do? And the thought just popped into my mind, quiet riot. We can literally affect change by just thinking past our opponent's expectations. Their expectation is you're going to riot. We're going to call in the guards, the National Guards, and we're going to tell you to go in your house, and we're going to tell you, to stand here and stand over there, and it's just a dangerous situation. I literally saw in Houston, I was watching some of the footage from that event, from that protest, and there was a young lady just standing there, just literally standing there. She took a few steps out, and she was just holding a sign, little girl, little tiny thing. And a cop, HPD officer on a horse, comes barreling up and runs right over the girl, trampled her, right there in front of everybody. Horrifying to see. This person wasn't throwing rocks. This person wasn't tearing up a police car. And so, literally, she could have been killed. And the cop that did it would not have been held accountable. More than likely. So now what's our move? To get us ourselves out of these situations. Another scene I saw in New York City. NYPD comes up against a barricade of protesters who have barricaded the street. They have barricades in front of them and they're standing as a crowd united in the streets. And the cops literally just gunned it and ran these folks over. That could have been yet another disaster. It almost looked like they were trying to do a repeat of the Charlottesville killer who ran his car into a crowd of protesters. So now we're at a point where we can't just keep putting ourselves into the path of these killers. They've shown us what they're willing to do. We have to think ahead of the game. And so for that reason, I'm calling for a quiet riot that is going to take aim at collegiate sports specifically. And that's the start. That's the start. We have to do this in phases. If we can do more, let's do more. But for right now, all of these young athletes that live in these neighborhoods where they grow up and they see themselves and their friends and their family members constantly harassed by the police forces in their communities. They are being brutalized, they're being harassed, and in some cases they're being murdered. And there's a much darker and much more nefarious plan going on that we're not even aware of. But if we just want to take aim and do something right now that's going to stop this from happening, our job right now is to get to these young men who are being pursued by these colleges and institutions that come into our communities year after year. They know the conditions that we live in. They know that a lot of these players live in poor, underserved communities, and they come in, they snatch them out, they take them to their colleges, they use these young men to make a lot of money and sell a lot of merchandise and make a lot of money for these schools that end up building new athletic buildings and facilities, and they build new libraries with the money, and they build new science labs with the money, they build new auditoriums with the money. It's just like a constant flow of money pouring into these colleges and universities, like the University of Alabama, like the University of Missouri, where I'm going to point out, some of you may recall, 4.5 years ago, there was a situation at the University of Missouri wherein the students, the minority students, particularly black students, were being harassed in their dorms and in other parts of the college, where the athletes are completely isolated from this. And I know this because my son was an athlete. They have their own dorm. They have their own place to eat. I mean, they almost live in a bubble until they're ready to go out or intermingle with the other students. And so what's happening is, or what happened is that, people were seeing swastikas drawn and fecal matter and all of this stuff. It was just horrible. And the students went to the president of the university, Tom Wolfe, and pled with him to take action, which he did not. He was dismissive, as society at large tends to be. He was callous, unconcerned, as society at large tends to be. At some point, there was a graduate student who stepped up and went on a hunger strike and said, we're not going to eat. I'm not going to eat until this problem is resolved. Well, they were like, okay, fine. However, they did not anticipate, because they do so much to keep the players and the other black students segregated from one another. Interesting word, but they do that. They segregate their athletes from the rest of the black population. And these athletes, and I understand this because my son played at Alabama, where there were also racial issues going on at that school from the time he got there. So what happens is they try to keep the players distracted with football and sports and working out and all of that, to where they don't have time to engage in social issues. They only want those black bodies on campus to play football or basketball or what have you, and make money for the school. That's it. If you graduate, or when you graduate, you're done. There's no more support. There's no rehabilitation for your body after you've allowed your body to be pounded on their football fields and you've done all this. There's no, like, any type of parting packages or anything. You're just done. And so a lot of these young men who may or may not end up getting drafted into the NFL, the ones who do, great. You go off, you sign a contract, you do the best you can, you make a lot of money and try to live good for yourself and your family. The ones who don't get drafted do their best to stay in the league or stay active doing football, or maybe they just go on about their business and go on about their life and do what they can to have, a normal life after football. And I can tell you, just based on my own experience with my son, it's an adjustment to go from 4 years of 100,000 people in a stadium cheering you on and cheering your name and all of that, to, okay, I'm just a normal average person. And I don't think the schools even take into consideration the emotional and psychological impact that this has. There's no support system for helping these young men to reacclimate to society at large. And so all of those things considered, for them to continue to have access to this great resource without taking into consideration that these communities that they are getting rich off of are continuing to suffer at the hands of the local police, who are over policing us and over policing our communities. This is something that they absolutely must stand up and speak on. It is not right that Nick Saban has the budget and the ability to hop on a private plane and fly in to any city in the country and come ask for your son to play at his school, as he did me, but you don't have another, you don't have any consideration for the communities that they come out of. And incidentally, my son didn't come out of a poor community. We lived in a all white community, actually, or mostly white, predominantly white community. And we didn't see a lot of poverty around us. Nobody around there. I mean, people were not, everybody wasn't rolling in dough. But I lived in Northwest Arkansas, in Springdale, Arkansas, for 20 years of my life. And so my son was the number one player in Arkansas, which got the attention of colleges all over the country who came, and the University of Missouri also was one of them. And so these coaches show all this interest in your son for no other reason other than the fact that he can play football very, very well. And when your son goes to these colleges and institutions, they end up making a lot of money, and your son is on his own after that. Their time with that football program is done, whether they're in the NBA, the NFL, or the NBA, whatever sport they end up playing, or they manage to somehow maybe go overseas and play if they're in, basketball or what have you, or they play with some other minor league, they play in Canada, what have you. But a lot of money is being made off of these young men. A lot of money. They win championships. And do they get perks? Yes. But those perks don't do anything towards helping them in their communities where they come from. Those perks don't do anything in helping these young men in their lives. So what do I mean by a quiet riot? I'm asking people to step up. Young men, if you've been offered a scholarship from these major schools who have shown no love to your community, who have done nothing to keep your family and your community safe while they continue to live well with their servants and their perks and their bonuses. There's just too much to name as far as all the money one athlete can make for a school. It's a lot of money. Money that athlete's never going to see in their lifetime. So that makes them a slave. When your efforts are not rewarded to the extent that you've put forth financially, when you are not financially rewarded to the same extent that you have put forth an effort, that is slavery. You might get 50 cents. You might get something. You might eat well. You might get some cool sports gear and shoes and all of that, but that's not compensating you to the same extent that you have put your effort in. So, by a quiet riot, it's time to pull out of this. It's time to pull out of this nonsense. It's time to strike a blow at collegiate sports and professional sports. Why am I concerned with even making this proposal? Because we've become a nation of people who are very self-serving. We are individualistic in our thinking, too individualistic. It's all about the individual. And we see a George Floyd get murdered, or we see Ahmaud Arbery get murdered, and his killers are left to go on about their business. We see the killers of people like Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Tamir Rice and Eric Garner just walk away. They just walk away. They're not charged. They continue to live their lives. Oftentimes they get big fat GoFundMe bonuses for killing a black man who posed no threat. And so as we see that unfold, and we keep seeing our young men coming out of these communities and then being snatched up by these colleges who have nothing to say when these things happen. They don't show solidarity with their players. They show solidarity with their fans by being quiet. These coaches is what I'm talking about. They're quiet. They don't want to upset the fan base because that's where the money is actually coming from. So if you do something to upset them, then that is going to impact the bottom line for the school. So make no mistake, we have the power to affect change, just like the players at Mizzou, the University of Missouri. Those football players stepped in after this young man, this graduate student, went on strike. The football players stepped in. I think they said it was something like 41 of the 58 players on the first two teams were black. So if they weren't on that field, they were going to have some problems. They were going to lose a lot of money. And that was not something that school was willing to accept. And it was within a few days of these players announcing that they were boycotting, they were not going to play or practice, that the president of that university stepped down. Now that's one university where 41 players made a change. They made an impact. What would happen if every one of our young black men who are being used for their gifts and their talents to make these universities and colleges wealthy, and the NCAA wealthy? What would happen if they would just say, no more? I think a lot would happen. A lot would change. We are not happy with the charges for this officer being third-degree murder and manslaughter. That is a slap in the face. So my official proposal right now, and I want anyone and everyone that can hear me, willing to hear me out, go. Tell this message, spread this message, share this message. Quiet riot. No more collegiate sports until we see all 4 of those officers charged with murder, first degree. All 4. If that does not happen, we don't need to be on their football fields. They don't need us. They must not need us. They keep killing us. So this is the next step, in my opinion. This is the next phase. It is so much safer. It sends a much bigger message, and it will strike a blow in the only place that they can hear us. The only way they can hear us is if we hit them in the pocketbook, hit them in the bank account. When that happens, we're going to see change. So please, spread the message, shout the truth, and demand justice. We have leverage. We need to stop moving in the same direction every single time. It's predictable. They know it and they use it against us. Let's send a message. Every young black athlete, male or female, who is being pursued by a university or a college to play, do not sign a commitment. Rescind your commitment or refuse to play until you see change. Once again, do not sign a commitment or rescind your commitment or refuse to play until these demands are met. I believe we can get justice for George Floyd if we do this. I truly believe it. So if you're in agreement, the best thing you can do now is express the same thing or share this message. I don't care. I'm not trying to go viral, but I do want people to get this message out. Quiet Riot 2020. Let's do it. I got something really special I want to share with y'all, so please stay tuned and take a look at this. Y'all be blessed.
Shalom. What's good, King?
Yo, King, where you at? I got those tools to get this revolution started.
Word, that's what it do.
Yo, I don't see you. Pull up.
All right, I'm about to pull up. Shalom.
These secrets in my head, oh, how they burden me. These secrets in my head burn with urgency.
Good, King?
What's going on,
Yo,
King?
you all right?
Yo,
All right, let's
hey,
see.
told you I got what you need.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
See, I got what you need.
Yeah. Ooh, hey, y'all look beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. But you know what I really need, though.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, let's see it. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Revolution began in the mind. But you know, I'm gonna need to take all this, though.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Revolution is psycho.
Let's go!
First of all, let me set it. No writtens, this all prophetic, magnetic to listening ears. Just listen here, or the cost could be detrimental to the lost, forgotten children of the Most High. My camp click, lace up our boots and yell, a Scotia. That means we ready for the race wars. And with the wisdom of Solomon, I've been following my faith more. Before that, what was stopping you? Hard-headed, disobedient, rolling with greedy in the Midwest Mafia. But now it's me, Kalakia, L.E.L. taking a high road. Fully repentant, better feeling than winning a lotto. To turn my life around wasn't too difficult. Cuffed the municipal courts in front of judges for principles of the streets, keeping the codes. But times change, it got worse than trying to sleep with a cold. Seeking the road to redemption, trying to reach for my goal. And falling short every time, devil seeking my soul. I fell deep in the hole and it was all downhill from there. Had to put my life back together just like a Build-A-Bear. Feeling like a millionaire now that I know the truth about Abanawa, Yahweh, Bahashima, Mashiach, Yahweh Shai. I'm putting music out for my people winning souls. I understand he had to do me like he did to Job, and take my family through some things just to lift the load. Tested my faith and my patience to get the kingdom. I can't wait to my nation. We with Yahweh Shai. That's who I'm living my life for. Put down the 4-pound, picked up the Bible. It's called Revolution is Psycho. For survival, we with Yahweh Shai. That's who I'm living my life for. Put down the 4-pound, picked up the Bible. It's called revolution is psycho for survival. What? Now that Trump's in the president's seat, these racist crackers blatant attackers with words, spewing their hatred at us and view it as racist action. And from slapping their faces backwards, I shake the dust to avoid catching a case for that shit. Daily in my word, cause patience a virtue. Without patience can hurt you. Satan's waiting to curse you worse than we already are. Don't fall for that, practice faith. They'll catch a case and get hit with more paper than office max. Called us niggas, now they call us blacks. Ain't shit changed but a word. Still leave your brains on the curve. So when approached by your adversaries, agree with them quickly. Remember Sean Bell and how they was feeding them 50. Shots to Michael Brown, left his body in the streets. If Orlando Castile slumped in his seats, fuck the police. That's what we screaming to these demons who target us, fatherless children of the Most High with the heart of a Spartacus. Shout out to a mob, AOC is the Mac baby. No division is real, you see what's happening lately. Bringing the camps together, no matter which camp's the closest. In the spirit of the Maccabees, Trump playing Antiochus. Until you coons cooning for the master uncircumcised. Well, now the true prophets is here, here's where the curse collides. Cause we be forming a body, having them search the lies. With the truth of a Mashiach, we'll be the first to rise. How it shines. That's who I'm living my life for. Put down the 4 pound, picked up the Bible. It's called revolution, it's psycho for survival. We with you how it shines. That's who I'm living my life for. Put down the 4 pound, picked up the Bible. It's called revolution, it's psycho for survival.
All throughout the planet Earth. We got camps California, Florida, Alaska, okay, DC, Maryland, okay, Japan, okay. The gospel is going to be preached all throughout the earth, and then that's going to be the final judgment of America. Right? Okay, read that. Isaiah 45:17. Come on. But Israel, what? But Israel. Come on. But